In a world where celebrity children often struggle under public pressure, three young royals are thriving against all odds. While cameras capture their every public moment, and the weight of future crown responsibilities looms over their childhood, Prince George, Princess Charlotte, and Prince Louis Wales display something remarkable: genuine happiness, natural confidence, and emotional resilience that surprises even seasoned royal watchers. What makes their upbringing different from previous royal generations? The answer lies not in privilege or protocol, but in a revolutionary approach their parents have quietly pioneered behind palace walls. William and Catherine have broken centuries of royal parenting tradition, choosing emotional intelligence over rigid formality, creating a blueprint that even non-royal families are beginning to follow. This isn't just another royal story. It's the untold account of how two parents are rewriting the rules of raising future leaders, one emotionally intelligent moment at a time. Their method is so effective that child psychologists worldwide are studying their approach, discovering principles that could transform how any parent raises confident, emotionally healthy children. The story begins not with grand ceremonies or royal protocols, but with a simple moment that would set the tone for everything that followed. The morning sun streamed through the windows of Kensington Palace as 5-year-old Prince George sat on the kitchen floor, tears streaming down his face. His carefully built tower of blocks lay scattered around him, destroyed by his younger sister Charlotte's enthusiastic running through the room. Any other royal household might have immediately called for a nanny to handle the situation, or perhaps scolded Charlotte for her disruption. But William knelt down beside his son, his voice calm and understanding. "I can see you're really upset about your tower, George. You worked hard on that, didn't you?" William's words weren't just comforting phrases. They reflected years of study and intentional learning about emotional intelligence that he and Catherine had undertaken since becoming parents. The couple had made a conscious decision that their children would be raised differently than previous royal generations, where emotions were often suppressed and feelings rarely acknowledged. Catherine appeared in the doorway, having heard the commotion. Instead of rushing to fix the situation, she paused and observed. She watched as William helped George identify his feelings, naming them clearly. It's okay to feel frustrated when something you care about gets broken. That's a normal feeling. This wasn't accidental parenting. Both William and Catherine had spent considerable time learning about child psychology, reading research about emotional development, and consulting with experts about how to raise emotionally intelligent children. Their approach stemmed from their own childhoods. William remembered the emotional isolation he felt after his mother's death, the way feelings were pushed aside in favor of duty and protocol. Catherine, though not royal by birth, had grown up in a family where emotions were acknowledged and discussed. Together, they decided their children would experience something different. They would learn to understand their feelings, express them appropriately, and develop the emotional skills needed not just for royal life, but for becoming emotionally healthy human beings. As George's crying subsided, William helped him understand what had happened. Charlotte didn't knock down your tower on purpose. She was excited and running, and sometimes when we're excited, we don't notice everything around us. This explanation helped George begin to understand perspective taking, a crucial component of emotional intelligence. Rather than villainizing Charlotte or dismissing George's feelings, William helped both children understand the situation from different angles. Charlotte, now 2 years old, had stopped her running and was looking at the scattered blocks with curiosity rather than understanding. Catherine sat down with her, speaking in simple terms appropriate for her age. "Look, Charlotte, George's blocks fell down. See George's face? He sat about his tower." Even at 2, Charlotte could begin to learn about recognizing emotions in others, though her understanding was limited by her developmental stage. This incident illustrated the foundational principle that William and Catherine had established in their household. Feelings matter, and they deserve attention and understanding. Unlike the traditional royal approach where children were expected to maintain composure regardless of their internal state, The Wales children were being taught to identify, understand, and appropriately express their emotions. The couple's commitment to emotional intelligence wasn't just theoretical. They had worked with child development experts to understand how emotions develop in children and how parents can support this development. They learned that emotional intelligence involves four key areas: self-awareness, self-management, social awareness, and relationship management. Their parenting approach deliberately addressed each of these areas. Self-awareness began with helping their children identify and name their emotions. William and Catherine made it a practice to regularly check in with their children about their feelings. During bedtime routines, they would often ask questions like, "What made you happy today?" Or "Was there anything that made you worried or sad?" These weren't interrogations, but gentle conversations that helped the children develop vocabulary for their internal experiences. The kitchen incident also demonstrated their approach to self-management. Rather than demanding that George stop crying immediately, William allowed him to feel his frustration while guiding him toward appropriate expression. "It's okay to be upset, but let's think about what might help you feel better. Would you like to rebuild your tower? Should we ask Charlotte to play somewhere else while you build?" This approach required enormous patience from both parents. Royal schedules are demanding, with constant appointments, engagements, and responsibilities. It would have been easier and faster to simply distract George or have staff handle the situation. But William and Catherine consistently prioritized these teaching moments, understanding that emotional intelligence develops through thousands of small interactions rather than formal lessons. Their commitment extended to their own emotional modeling. Children learn more from what they observe than from what they're told. So William and Catherine worked hard to demonstrate emotional intelligence in their own interactions. When they felt frustrated or stressed, they would often verbalize their feelings in age-appropriate ways. "Daddy is feeling worried about his speech today, so I'm going to take some deep breaths to help myself feel calmer." The palace staff initially struggled with this approach. Traditional royal household management involved strict schedules and minimal disruption. But William and Catherine insisted that their children's emotional needs took priority over convenience. Staff members were trained to recognize and support the family's approach to emotional development rather than simply managing logistics. This philosophical shift represented a significant departure from royal tradition. Previous generations of royal children were raised with an emphasis on duty, protocol, and emotional restraint. Feelings were considered private matters to be managed internally rather than discussed or explored. The Wales family's approach acknowledged that emotional intelligence is not a luxury, but a necessity for healthy development and effective leadership. Catherine's background in art history had taught her to observe and analyze carefully, skills she applied to understanding her children's emotional states. She noticed patterns in their behavior, identifying triggers that led to emotional outbursts and situations that supported their emotional well-being. This observational approach helped her and William respond proactively rather than reactively to their children's emotional needs. William's experience in military service had taught him about teamwork, communication, and leadership under pressure. He applied these lessons to parenting, understanding that effective leadership requires emotional intelligence. He wanted his children, particularly George as the future heir, to develop the emotional skills necessary for leadership in the modern world. The couple also recognized that their children's emotional development would impact their future relationships and their ability to connect with the people they would one day serve. A monarch or senior royal who lacks emotional intelligence would struggle to understand and relate to their subjects' experiences. By developing these skills early, their children would be better equipped for their future roles. As the mourning continued, William and Catherine helped George and Charlotte navigate their emotions around the block incident. They rebuilt the tower together, with Charlotte carefully placing blocks under George's guidance. This collaborative activity helped both children experience positive emotions together and practice the social skills that support healthy relationships. The incident concluded with a family hug, but not before William and Catherine had processed the emotions with both children. They acknowledged George's initial frustration, praised his ability to communicate his feelings, recognized Charlotte's willingness to help rebuild, and celebrated their successful problem-solving as a family. This debriefing process helped solidify the learning from the experience. Later that evening, during their private time together, William and Catherine reflected on the morning's events. They regularly discussed their parenting approaches, sharing observations about their children's development and adjusting their strategies as needed. This intentional reflection helped them maintain consistency in their approach and continue learning as parents. Their commitment to emotional intelligence extended beyond crisis moments to everyday interactions. Mealtimes became opportunities for emotional check-ins. Playtime included games that developed emotional vocabulary and social skills. Even routine activities like getting dressed or preparing for bed included moments for emotional connection and understanding. The foundation they were building through these daily interactions would prove crucial as their children faced the unique challenges of royal life. Public appearances, media attention, and the weight of future responsibilities would all require strong emotional intelligence skills. By starting early and maintaining consistency, William and Catherine were preparing their children not just for royal duties, but for fulfilling, emotionally healthy lives. The autumn afternoon at Lambert School presented an unexpected teaching moment for the Wales family. 7-year-old Princess Charlotte had come home with tears in her eyes and anger in her voice. Her best friend Emma had excluded her from a group game during recess, choosing instead to play with some older girls who had recently joined their class. For most parents, this might seem like typical childhood drama, but William and Catherine recognized it as a crucial opportunity to develop their daughter's emotional intelligence. Catherine sat with Charlotte in the garden behind their home at Adelaide Cottage, away from the formality of palace life. She didn't immediately jump to comfort or solutions. Instead, she created space for Charlotte to express her feelings fully. "Tell me about what happened today, sweetheart. I can see you're upset." Catherine's voice carried genuine curiosity rather than judgment, encouraging Charlotte to share her experience without fear of criticism. Charlotte's words tumbled out in a rush of hurt and confusion. "Emma didn't want to play with me anymore. She said the older girls were more fun and that I was too babyish for their game. It made me feel horrible inside, like there was something wrong with me." As Charlotte spoke, Catherine listened not just to the words but to the emotions underneath them. She recognized rejection sensitivity, a normal part of childhood development, but also an opportunity to help Charlotte understand the complexity of human relationships. Rather than dismissing the incident as unimportant or immediately reassuring Charlotte that Emma was wrong, Catherine helped her daughter explore the multiple layers of the situation. "It sounds like you're feeling hurt because Emma chose to play with other girls instead of you. That must have been really disappointing when you were looking forward to playing together." This validation of Charlotte's feelings demonstrated one of the core principles William and Catherine had learned about emotional intelligence. Feelings need to be acknowledged before they can be processed. William joined them in the garden, having wrapped up a phone call with his private secretary. He had developed a skill for reading the emotional temperature of situations quickly, a necessity given his busy schedule, but also a demonstration of emotional intelligence in action. Seeing Charlotte's posture and Catherine's attentive body language, he immediately understood that something significant was happening and adjusted his approach accordingly. "Daddy, Emma doesn't want to be my friend anymore," Charlotte said, her voice small and vulnerable. William felt the protective instinct that comes naturally to parents, the desire to fix the problem immediately or to minimize his daughter's pain. But he and Catherine had learned that emotional intelligence develops through experiencing and processing difficult emotions, not avoiding them. "That sounds really hard, Charlotte. Friendship problems can feel very big and important," William said, settling down on the grass beside them. His physical positioning communicated equality and availability, showing Charlotte that her concerns were worthy of his full attention. This wasn't a casual conversation happening while he checked his phone or reviewed briefing papers. His presence was complete and focused. Together, the three of them explored what had happened from different perspectives. Catherine guided Charlotte through a process of considering Emma's experience. Emma might have been excited about making new friends with the older girls. Sometimes when we're excited about something new, we don't think about how our choices might affect other people. That doesn't make it okay, but it might help explain why it happened. This perspective-taking exercise was crucial for developing Charlotte's social awareness, one of the key components of emotional intelligence. Rather than painting Emma as a villain or Charlotte as a victim, they explored the complexity of human motivations and the fact that people's actions often stem from their own emotions and needs rather than intended cruelty. William contributed his own perspective, drawing from his experiences of friendship challenges during his school years. I remember when I was about your age, my friend James suddenly didn't want to sit with me at lunch anymore because some older boys invited him to sit with them. I felt confused and sad, just like you do now. His willingness to share his own vulnerable experiences helped Charlotte understand that friendship challenges are universal and that difficult emotions are normal parts of human experience. They discussed the difference between feeling hurt and being hurt on purpose. Charlotte was learning to distinguish between impact and intent, a sophisticated emotional concept that would serve her well throughout life. Emma's choice to play with the older girls hurt your feelings, but she probably wasn't trying to hurt you. Sometimes people make choices that affect us without meaning to cause harm. The conversation naturally led to discussing Charlotte's options for responding to the situation. This was where emotional intelligence moved from understanding into action. Catherine and William helped Charlotte think through different possibilities without immediately suggesting what she should do. What do you think you might want to happen next? How would you like to handle this situation? Charlotte's initial response was emotional rather than strategic. I want to tell Emma that she's mean and that I don't want to be her friend either. This reaction demonstrated normal childhood thinking, where hurt feelings often lead to desires for retaliation or protection through rejection. William and Catherine didn't criticize this response, but used it as another teaching opportunity. Those feelings make sense, Charlotte. When someone hurts us, sometimes we want to hurt them back. Let's think about what might happen if you told Emma she was mean. How do you think that would make her feel, and how do you think it would affect your friendship? This questioning approach helped Charlotte begin to think about consequences and consider the longer-term effects of her choices. Catherine introduced the concept of emotional goals. What do you really want most, Charlotte? Do you want Emma to feel bad, or do you want to find a way to enjoy your friendship again? This question helped Charlotte move beyond her immediate emotional reaction to consider her deeper desires and values. As the afternoon progressed, Charlotte began to develop her own ideas about how to handle the situation. With gentle guidance from her parents, she recognized that she valued her friendship with Emma and wanted to find a way to repair it. She also acknowledged that she felt left out and wanted to address that feeling constructively. William suggested they practice different ways Charlotte might approach Emma the next day. This role-playing exercise allowed Charlotte to rehearse emotional regulation and communication skills in a safe environment. They practiced expressing hurt feelings without attacking Emma's character, asking for clarification about the friendship, and suggesting inclusive solutions. I could tell Emma that my feelings were hurt when she said I was too babyish, and ask if we can still be friends, Charlotte suggested. Catherine helped her refine this approach. That's a great start. You're expressing your feelings honestly without calling her names or being mean. You might also ask her if there's a way you could sometimes play together, just the two of you, like you used to. The conversation also addressed Charlotte's internal emotional state. They talked about building resilience, the ability to bounce back from disappointment and hurt. Sometimes friends make choices that disappoint us, and sometimes we make choices that disappoint our friends. Learning how to handle these situations helps us become better friends ourselves. William shared insights about friendship from his adult perspective, helping Charlotte understand that good friendships often go through difficult periods and come out stronger. The best friendships are the ones where people can talk about problems and work them out together. If Emma is willing to talk about what happened and try to include you sometimes, that shows she values your friendship too. They also discuss the reality that sometimes friendships change or end, and that this is also a normal part of life. If Emma decides she doesn't want to be close friends anymore, that would be sad, but it wouldn't mean there was anything wrong with you. People's interests and friendships sometimes change as they grow up. Catherine introduced breathing exercises and other emotional regulation techniques that Charlotte could use when she felt overwhelmed by difficult emotions. When you're feeling really upset, sometimes it helps to take 3 deep breaths and count to 10 before deciding what to say. This gives your brain time to think clearly instead of just reacting to big feelings. The family also talked about building a broader social network, reducing dependence on any single friendship for emotional well-being. It's wonderful to have a best friend, but it's also good to have other friends you enjoy spending time with. That way, if one friend is busy or makes a choice that hurts your feelings, you still have other people who care about you. As evening approached, Charlotte's emotional state had noticeably shifted. She still felt hurt about the incident with Emma, but she no longer felt overwhelmed or powerless. The processing conversation with her parents had helped her understand her emotions, consider different perspectives, and develop a plan for moving forward constructively. During dinner, Charlotte shared her experience with her brothers, George and Louis. This family discussion allowed all 3 children to learn from Charlotte's experience and contributed to the emotional intelligence of the entire family. George, being older, could offer his own perspectives on friendship challenges, while little Louis absorbed lessons about emotions and relationships through observation and simple participation. That evening, as Catherine tucked Charlotte into bed, they reviewed the day's emotional journey together. You handled a really difficult situation today, Charlotte. You felt your feelings, talked about them, thought about Emma's perspective, and came up with a plan for tomorrow. That shows you're developing strong emotional skills. This reflection helped solidify Charlotte's learning and build her confidence in her ability to handle future challenges. The bedtime conversation also included gratitude practice, another component of emotional intelligence that the Wales family had incorporated into their routine. Even though today was difficult, what are some things you feel grateful for? Charlotte mentioned her family's support, her ability to express her feelings, and her hope for working things out with Emma. This gratitude practice helped end the day on a positive note despite the earlier challenges. William and Catherine's approach to Charlotte's friendship challenge demonstrated their comprehensive understanding of emotional intelligence development. They had provided emotional support without solving the problem for her, helped her develop perspective-taking skills, guided her through emotional regulation techniques, and empowered her to take constructive action. Most importantly, they had shown her that difficult emotions are manageable and that challenging interpersonal situations can be opportunities for growth rather than simply problems to be avoided. The morning of the Platinum Jubilee celebrations arrived with unprecedented media attention and public expectation. 9-year-old Prince George would be making one of his most significant public appearances to date, walking with the family to St. Paul's Cathedral while millions watched worldwide. For most children, this level of scrutiny would be overwhelming, but William and Catherine had spent years preparing their children for moments exactly like this through careful emotional intelligence coaching. 3 hours before leaving Kensington Palace, George sat in his room, fully dressed in his formal attire, but his hands were shaking slightly. Catherine noticed immediately when she came to check on him. Rather than rushing to reassure him or dismissing his nervousness as unnecessary, she sat down on his bed and created space for him to express what he was feeling. "I can see your hands are a bit shaky, George. What's happening in your mind right now?" Catherine's question was specific and observational, helping George connect his physical sensations with his emotional state. This was a technique she and William had learned from child psychologists, helping children recognize the connection between their thoughts, feelings, and physical sensations. George looked up at his mother, his face reflecting a mixture of excitement and anxiety. "There are going to be so many people watching, Mummy. What if I do something wrong? What if I trip or forget what I'm supposed to do?" His concerns were completely normal for a child facing such a significant public moment. But they also represented an opportunity for Catherine to help him develop emotional regulation skills that would serve him throughout his royal life. "Those are really understandable worries, George. When we're doing something important in front of lots of people, it's natural to feel nervous. Even adults feel this way sometimes." Catherine's validation helped normalize George's emotions rather than suggesting he shouldn't feel nervous. This approach supported his emotional development by teaching him that difficult emotions are normal and manageable rather than problems to be eliminated. William appeared in the doorway, having experienced similar pre-event nerves countless times throughout his own royal career. He recognized the emotional landscape George was navigating and brought his own understanding of performance anxiety to the conversation. "I remember before my first big public event, my stomach felt like it was full of butterflies, and my hands felt just like yours do now." The family had developed a routine for managing pre-event emotions that drew on evidence-based anxiety management techniques while remaining age-appropriate and practical. Catherine guided George through a series of breathing exercises they had practiced many times before. "Let's do our balloon breathing, George. Imagine your belly is a balloon, and you're filling it up slowly with air, then letting the air out even more slowly." This breathing technique served multiple purposes beyond immediate anxiety relief. It gave George a concrete tool he could use independently when facing emotional challenges. It helped him develop body awareness and emotional regulation skills, and it provided a moment of calm connection with his parents before the demanding public day ahead. William contributed practical perspective-taking exercises that helped George understand the event from different viewpoints. The people who will be watching today are excited to see our family celebrating with them. They're not looking for you to be perfect, George. They're happy that you're there sharing this special day with them. This reframing helped George shift from focusing on potential mistakes to considering the positive intentions of the public attention. Catherine addressed George's specific worry about making mistakes. "George, everyone makes small mistakes sometimes, even adults at important events. If you trip or forget something, the people watching will understand because they're people too, and people are generally kind and forgiving." She also reminded him of previous public appearances that had gone well, building his confidence based on past successes. The conversation evolved into a discussion about the purpose of the day's events. William and Catherine had learned that helping their children connect with the meaning behind royal duties made those duties feel less burdensome and more purposeful. Today is about celebrating Granny's many years of service to our country. We're there to show our love and support for her and to share in the country's gratitude. This meaning-making approach helped George understand his role in a larger context rather than focusing solely on his own performance anxiety. When children understand the purpose behind challenging activities, they often find additional motivation and resilience to handle the emotional demands. As they prepared to leave for the cathedral, Catherine and William implemented another emotional intelligence strategy they had developed for public events, setting realistic expectations and preparing for various scenarios. "George, today will probably feel very exciting and maybe a little overwhelming at times. If you start feeling too much during the service, you can look at Daddy or me, and we'll help you remember your breathing exercises." They also discussed the difference between private emotions and public behavior, a sophisticated concept that was crucial for royal children to understand. It's okay to feel nervous or excited or any other emotions during the service, George. Those feelings are private and normal. Our job is to participate respectfully in the ceremony while taking care of our emotions quietly. The car journey to St. Paul's provided additional opportunities for emotional coaching. As crowds began to appear along the route, George's excitement increased, but so did his nervousness. Catherine helped him process these mixed emotions. It looks like you're feeling excited and nervous at the same time. That's called having mixed feelings, and it's very common when something is both fun and a little scary. William pointed out specific faces in the crowds, helping George connect with individuals rather than feeling overwhelmed by the mass of people. Look at that family there, George. See how they're smiling and waving? They're excited to see you. And look at that little boy about your age. He probably feels excited to see another boy his age doing something important. This technique of personalizing the crowd helped George develop empathy and social awareness while reducing his anxiety about public attention. Instead of seeing an intimidating mass of strangers, he began to see individuals who were genuinely happy to share this experience with his family. Upon arriving at the cathedral, the full scale of the event became apparent. Television cameras, photographers, and thousands of attendees created an atmosphere of significant formality and importance. George's earlier breathing exercises and emotional preparation proved crucial as he navigated the intense public attention. During the service itself, Catherine and William continued their subtle emotional coaching. When George seemed to be losing focus or becoming overwhelmed, Catherine would make gentle eye contact and take a deep breath, reminding him of their practice techniques. William would occasionally place a reassuring hand on George's shoulder, providing physical grounding during emotionally intense moments. The Wales family had learned that public events required emotional stamina, not just good behavior. They had prepared George not only for the formal requirements of the service, but also for managing his emotional energy throughout the long day. During quieter moments in the ceremony, Catherine would whisper small observations that kept George engaged and connected to the meaning of the event. Listen to that beautiful music, George. The choir has been practicing for months to make this special for Granny. These whispered comments served multiple purposes. They kept George engaged with the ceremony, helped him appreciate the efforts of others, and provided ongoing emotional connection with his mother during a formal public event. Following the service, the family faced another emotionally demanding situation, the walkabout where they would interact directly with members of the public. This required different emotional skills than sitting quietly during a formal ceremony. George would need to engage socially with strangers, manage his energy levels, and maintain composure while feeling tired from the morning's events. Catherine had prepared him for this transition by discussing the change in emotional demands. After sitting quietly for a long time, now we get to walk around and meet some of the people who came to celebrate with us. This will feel very different from the service. You might feel energized by talking with people, or you might feel tired. Both reactions are normal. During the walkabout, George demonstrated the emotional intelligence skills his parents had been developing in him. When a young girl his age seemed too shy to speak to him, George showed empathy by getting down to her level and speaking softly. When an elderly gentleman wanted to shake his hand, George made appropriate eye contact and showed genuine interest in the conversation. These interactions weren't accidental. William and Catherine had spent years helping George develop social awareness and relationship management skills through role-playing exercises, discussions about reading social cues, and practice in engaging appropriately with people of different ages and backgrounds. Later that afternoon, as the family returned to Kensington Palace, they engaged in their typical post-event emotional processing. This debriefing routine helped all three children learn from their experiences and continue developing their emotional intelligence skills. How are you feeling now that the morning is over, George? George reflected thoughtfully on his experience. I felt nervous at the beginning, but the breathing exercises helped. During the service, I felt proud to be there for Granny. When we were talking to people afterward, I felt happy because they seemed genuinely excited to meet us. His ability to identify and articulate different emotions from different parts of the day demonstrated sophisticated emotional self-awareness. Catherine and William also share their own emotional experiences from the day, modeling emotional reflection and demonstrating that adults continue to have complex emotional responses to challenging situations. I felt proud of how you handled yourself today, George, and I also felt a little nervous about making sure everything went smoothly. The family discussion included recognition of what had gone well and what they might do differently in future similar situations. This reflection process helped George develop a growth mindset about emotional challenges and public responsibilities. Rather than simply surviving the event, he was learning to analyze and improve his emotional responses. That evening, as the family relaxed together, they watched some of the news coverage from the day's events. George was able to see himself from the public perspective and discuss the difference between his internal emotional experience and his external presentation. I looked calm in the pictures, but I felt quite nervous inside sometimes. This observation led to a valuable discussion about the difference between feeling emotions and being controlled by emotions. William explained, "That's exactly right, George. You felt nervous, but you didn't let the nervousness control your behavior. That's what emotional intelligence looks like. You can feel your emotions and still make good choices about how to act." The Jubilee weekend continued with additional events, each presenting different emotional challenges and learning opportunities. Charlotte and Louis, observing their older brother's successful navigation of these challenges, absorbed lessons about emotional regulation, social engagement, and public responsibility that would inform their own future royal duties. Through this significant public experience, the Wales family demonstrated how emotional intelligence could be developed and applied even in the most demanding circumstances. Their approach helped George not only survive a challenging public event, but actually grow from the experience, building confidence and skills that would serve him throughout his life as a future monarch. The summer holidays at Anmer Hall provided the Wales family with precious time away from official duties and public scrutiny, but it also intensified sibling dynamics that required careful emotional navigation. 10-year-old George, 8-year-old Charlotte, and 5-year-old Louis each brought different personalities, needs, and developmental stages to every family interaction. William and Catherine had learned that managing sibling relationships effectively required applying emotional intelligence principles to help each child understand their own emotions while also developing empathy for their siblings. The challenge became particularly evident during a seemingly simple family bike ride through the Norfolk countryside. George, being the oldest and most coordinated, rode ahead confidently, while Charlotte worked hard to keep up, determined not to be left behind. Louis, still developing his balance and coordination, struggled with his smaller bike and quickly became frustrated when he couldn't match his siblings' pace. "I can't go fast enough," Louis cried, stopping his bike abruptly and causing tears of frustration to flow down his cheeks. "George and Charlotte are too fast, and I'm too little." His emotional outburst contained multiple layers that William and Catherine recognized as common sibling dynamics: comparison, competitiveness, and the frustration of developmental limitations. Catherine dismounted her bike and approached Louis calmly, while William signaled for George and Charlotte to circle back. Rather than immediately trying to solve the problem or minimize Louis's feelings, Catherine knelt down to his level and acknowledged his emotional experience. "You're feeling frustrated because your bike can't go as fast as George and Charlotte's bikes. That must be really disappointing when you want to keep up with them." This validation was crucial for Louis's emotional development. At 5 years old, he was just beginning to understand and articulate complex emotions like frustration and disappointment. Catherine's response helped him feel heard while also expanding his emotional vocabulary. George and Charlotte arrived back where their parents and Louis had stopped, both showing different emotional responses to the situation. George displayed impatience, eager to continue their ride, and slightly annoyed at the interruption. Charlotte showed concern for her younger brother, mixed with her own disappointment about stopping their adventure. These varying emotional responses provided William and Catherine with an opportunity to help all three children develop emotional intelligence simultaneously. It looks like everyone has different feelings about what's happening right now, William observed, helping the children recognize that multiple emotional perspectives could exist in the same situation. George, I can see you're eager to keep writing. Charlotte, you look concerned about Lewis. And Lewis, you're feeling upset about not being able to keep up. These are all normal feelings for this situation. This acknowledgement of each child's emotional state served multiple purposes in their emotional intelligence development. It validated each child's feelings, demonstrated that different people can have different emotional responses to the same event, and created a foundation for problem-solving that considered everyone's needs. Catherine guided the children through a process of understanding each other's perspectives. She asked George to consider how he might feel if he were the youngest and smallest in a group activity. George, can you remember a time when you wanted to do something that older kids were doing, but you weren't quite ready yet? How did that feel? George thought for a moment before answering. When I wanted to play rugby with some older boys at school, but they said I was too small. I felt left out and sad. His ability to connect with a similar experience from his own life helped him develop empathy for Lewis's current situation. Charlotte, naturally empathetic, immediately understood Lewis's perspective. Lewis probably feels like we don't want to play with him, but we do want to play with him. We just didn't think about how his bike is smaller. Her insight demonstrated sophisticated social awareness for an 8-year-old and showed the positive effects of consistent emotional intelligence coaching. William used this moment to teach all three children about the difference between intent and impact. George and Charlotte, we didn't mean to make Lewis feel left out by riding faster. You were just enjoying your bikes. But the impact was that Lewis felt frustrated and excluded. Even when we don't intend to hurt someone's feelings, we can still consider how our actions affect others. This concept was particularly important for the whale's children to understand given their future royal roles. As public figures, their actions would often have impacts beyond their intentions, and developing awareness of this dynamic early would serve them throughout their lives. The family brainstormed solutions together, with William and Catherine guiding the process to ensure all three children felt heard and included. George suggested they could take turns, sometimes riding fast for the older children's enjoyment, and sometimes riding slowly so Lewis could participate fully. Charlotte proposed they could create games that didn't require speed, like treasure hunts or nature observation challenges. Lewis, his tears now dried, contributed his own idea. Could we sometimes walk our bikes and explore things we see along the way? His suggestion showed that he was developing problem-solving skills and learning to advocate for his own needs rather than simply expressing frustration. Catherine praised the collaborative problem-solving process. Look how well you're all working together to find solutions that help everyone feel included. You're showing care for each other's feelings and thinking creatively about how to have fun together. This positive reinforcement helped the children recognize their own emotional and social competence. The family decided to implement a combination of all the suggested solutions, creating a more flexible and inclusive approach to their bike ride. They would alternate between faster segments for the older children and slower, more exploratory segments that Lewis could fully enjoy. This compromise demonstrated practical emotional intelligence in action, recognizing different needs, communicating openly about solutions, and finding ways to meet everyone's emotional requirements. As they resumed their bike ride with a new approach, William and Catherine observed how the children's emotional states shifted. George showed patience and consideration as he matched his pace to Lewis's during the slower segments. Charlotte took on a protective and encouraging role with Lewis, pointing out interesting sights and cheering his efforts. Lewis demonstrated resilience and improved self-confidence as he successfully participated in the family activity. These sibling interactions provided ongoing opportunities for emotional intelligence development throughout the summer holidays. during a family cricket game in their garden. Similar dynamics emerged when Lewis struggled to hit the ball effectively, while his older siblings demonstrated more advanced skills. Again, William and Catherine used the situation to help all three children practice empathy, problem-solving, and emotional regulation. Lewis is getting frustrated with cricket, but he really wants to play with us, Charlotte observed during a break in the game. Her awareness of her brother's emotional state showed developing social intelligence, while her desire to include him demonstrated emotional caring. William encouraged the children to think about modifications that would allow Lewis to participate successfully while still providing appropriate challenges for George and Charlotte. They developed different rules for each child based on their abilities. Lewis could use a larger ball and hit from a closer distance. Charlotte could have standard rules, and George could challenge himself with additional constraints like batting with his non-dominant hand. These adaptations taught all three children about fairness versus equality, another sophisticated emotional intelligence concept. They learned that treating people fairly sometimes means treating them differently based on their needs and capabilities rather than treating everyone exactly the same. Catherine noticed that these collaborative problem-solving experiences were strengthening the bonds between the siblings. Rather than seeing each other as competitors or obstacles, they were learning to see each other as team members working together to create positive experiences for everyone. This shift in perspective would be crucial for their future relationships, both as siblings and as working members of the royal family. The emotional intelligence skills the children were developing also helped them handle conflicts more effectively. During one afternoon, when George and Charlotte disagreed about which movie to watch, they used techniques their parents had taught them about expressing preferences without dismissing others' ideas, listening to understand different perspectives, and finding creative compromises. I really want to watch the adventure movie because I love the exciting parts, George explained, using I statements rather than attacking Charlotte's preference. Charlotte responded, I understand you like adventure, but I was hoping for something funny because I've had a stressful day and want to laugh. Her response showed emotional self-awareness and clear communication about her needs. Lewis, observing his siblings' conflict resolution process, learned valuable lessons about handling disagreements. He suggested they could watch Charlotte's funny movie first because it was shorter, then watch part of George's adventure movie, saving the rest for the next day. His proposal demonstrated that he was internalizing the collaborative problem-solving approaches he had witnessed his parents and siblings use. William and Catherine were consistently impressed by their children's growing emotional sophistication. The sibling interactions were becoming laboratories for practicing emotional intelligence skills in real time, with each child learning from the other's examples and approaches. During quiet evening conversations, the family would often reflect on the day's emotional experiences together. These discussions helped consolidate learning and allowed each child to process their feelings about sibling interactions. Charlotte, I noticed you showed a lot of patience with Lewis during our nature walk today, when he wanted to stop and examine every interesting rock. Catherine's observation helped Charlotte recognize her own emotional growth and feel pride in her developing empathy and patience. These acknowledgments were crucial for building the children's emotional self-awareness and confidence in their relationship skills. The summer also provided opportunities for the children to practice emotional intelligence with extended family members and family friends who visited Amber Hall. Each social interaction required the children to read social cues, manage their own emotions, and adapt their communication styles to different personalities and age groups. When their cousins visited for a week-long stay, the Wales children demonstrated remarkable emotional intelligence in navigating the complex dynamics of a larger group of children with different personalities and family cultures. They showed flexibility in their play preferences, consideration for guest feelings, and skill in resolving conflicts that arose from different expectations and communication styles. George, as the oldest cousin present, naturally took on some leadership responsibilities, but William and Catherine helped him understand that leadership through emotional intelligence meant facilitating positive experiences for everyone rather than simply directing activities. A good leader helps everyone feel included and valued, George. That might mean choosing activities that work for the youngest children sometimes, even if they're not your personal favorite. Charlotte's natural empathy made her skilled at noticing when cousins felt left out or uncomfortable, and she often served as a bridge between different children's needs. Her emotional awareness helped prevent many potential conflicts and created more inclusive play experiences for everyone. Lewis, despite being one of the youngest children present, showed remarkable adaptability and emotional resilience. His experiences navigating sibling dynamics with George and Charlotte had prepared him well for the more complex social situations that arose with multiple cousins of various ages. By the end of the summer holidays, the emotional intelligence growth in all three Wales children was evident. Their sibling relationships had deepened, their conflict resolution skills had improved, and their ability to understand and manage their own emotions while considering others' feelings had become more sophisticated and natural. These foundation skills would prove invaluable as they returned to school and faced the increasing public attention that came with their growing visibility as young royals. The emotional intelligence they had developed through countless family interactions would serve them in classrooms, friendships, public appearances, and eventually in their adult roles as working members of the royal family. The autumn term brought new challenges and opportunities for the Wales children as they returned to Lamberg School, but it also marked a significant evolution in how William and Catherine approached emotional intelligence development. With George now 11 years old and approaching secondary school decisions, Charlotte confidently navigating her role as a middle child, and Lewis demonstrating increasing emotional sophistication at 6 years old. The family's approach shifted toward preparing the children for greater independence, while maintaining the strong emotional foundation they had built together. The morning routine at Adelaide Cottage had evolved into a sophisticated emotional check-in system that prepared each child for their day, while strengthening family connections. Rather than simply rushing through breakfast and departure logistics, William and Catherine had created space for what they called emotional weather reports, where each family member, including the parents, briefly shared their emotional state and any concerns or excitement about the upcoming day. I'm feeling a mixture of excited and nervous because I have my first rugby match as team captain today, George shared one Tuesday morning, demonstrating the emotional self-awareness that had become second nature to him. His ability to identify mixed emotions and express them clearly showed the years of emotional intelligence development paying off in practical ways. Charlotte added her own emotional weather report. I'm feeling confident about my math test, but I'm also feeling a bit worried about Emma because she seemed upset yesterday, and I want to help her feel better. Her consideration for her friend's emotional state alongside awareness of her own academic confidence illustrated the sophisticated social awareness she had developed. Lewis, not to be outdone by his older siblings, contributed his perspective. I'm feeling happy about art class today, but I'm feeling frustrated because my shoelaces keep coming untied and I want to learn to tie them better. His ability to articulate both positive and challenging emotions while identifying a specific goal for improvement showed remarkable emotional intelligence for a 6-year-old. William and Catherine also shared their own emotional states, modeling the ongoing nature of emotional awareness and the normalcy of having complex feelings about daily responsibilities. I'm feeling energized about my meetings today, but I'm also feeling a bit anxious about making sure I represent people's concerns accurately in my discussions, William shared, demonstrating that adults continue to experience and manage challenging emotions. This daily emotional check-in served multiple purposes beyond simple family connection. It helped each family member process their emotions before encountering the day's challenges, provided opportunities for family members to offer support and encouragement to each other, and maintained the emotional intelligence skills through consistent practice. The drive to school became another opportunity for targeted emotional intelligence coaching. Catherine noticed that George seemed more withdrawn than usual despite his earlier confidence about the rugby match. Rather than assuming she understood his internal experience, she created space for him to explore his feelings further. "George, I noticed you've been quieter since we left home. Sometimes our feelings change as we get closer to things we're both excited and nervous about. What's happening in your mind right now?" Catherine's observation was specific and non-judgmental, inviting George to reflect on his emotional experience without feeling criticized for his change in mood. George appreciated his mother's perceptiveness and felt safe expressing his evolving feelings. "I was excited about being captain when I woke up, but now I'm starting to worry about whether I'll be good at leading the team. What if I make decisions that lose us the match? What if the other boys don't want to follow my suggestions?" His concerns revealed the sophisticated thinking that comes with increased responsibility and the emotional complexity of leadership challenges. William, drawing from his extensive experience with leadership in various contexts, contributed valuable perspective to George's concerns. "Leadership anxiety is something that many good leaders experience, George. The fact that you're thinking carefully about your responsibilities and caring about your teammates' experience shows that you're taking the role seriously. That's actually a sign that you'll probably be a good captain." This reframing helped George understand that his nervous feelings weren't indicators of inadequacy, but rather signs of his conscientiousness and care for others. Catherine built on William's perspective by helping George identify specific emotional regulation techniques he could use during the match if he felt overwhelmed by leadership pressure. "Remember our breathing exercises and the grounding techniques we've practiced? If you start feeling too much pressure during the match, you could take a moment to breathe deeply and remind yourself that your job is to encourage your teammates and make the best decisions you can with the information you have. You don't have to be perfect." As they arrived at school, George's emotional state had noticeably improved. The family's emotional processing had helped him move from anxious overthinking to confident preparation. He hugged his parents goodbye with genuine warmth rather than the tense distraction he had shown earlier in the car. Throughout the school day, the emotional intelligence skills the Wales children had developed served them in various situations. Charlotte encountered the situation with Emma that she had mentioned during breakfast, and she drew on her family's teachings about empathy and supportive friendship to navigate the interaction successfully. "Emma, I noticed you seemed upset yesterday, and I want to check if you're okay. Is there anything I can do to help?" Charlotte's approach demonstrated several emotional intelligence principles: attention to others' emotional states, direct but caring communication, and offering support without making assumptions about what kind of help might be needed. Emma's response revealed that she was dealing with her parents' separation, a situation that required Charlotte to provide emotional support beyond her own experience. Drawing on conversations with her parents about how to support friends through difficult times, Charlotte listened without trying to fix the problem, offered her consistent friendship, and suggested Emma talk to a trusted adult if she needed additional support. Meanwhile, Lewis faced his own emotional challenge when a classmate accidentally knocked down a block instruction he had been working on during free play. His initial impulse was anger and the desire to retaliate, normal reactions for a 6-year-old in such situations. However, his emotional intelligence development helped him pause and consider his options before acting. Lewis remembered his family's teachings about distinguishing between accidental and intentional harm, and he observed his classmate's face to read the emotional cues there. Seeing genuine surprise and concern rather than malice, Lewis chose to respond with emotional intelligence rather than reactive anger. "I think that was an accident," Lewis said to himself quietly, using the self-talk techniques his parents had taught him. He then approached his classmate. "I saw you bump my blocks by accident. I felt sad when they fell down because I worked hard on that castle, but I know you didn't mean to knock it down." His response demonstrated emotional self-awareness, perspective-taking, and clear communication about impact versus intent. His classmate, impressed by Lewis's mature response, immediately offered to help rebuild the castle and became more careful about his movements around other children's projects. This interaction illustrated how emotional intelligence creates positive social dynamics and builds stronger relationships. After school, the family reunited for their traditional post-day reflection, another element of their emotional intelligence routine that had evolved over the years. Each child shared both challenges they had navigated and successes they had experienced, while William and Catherine provided encouragement and continued coaching. George's rugby captaincy had gone well overall, though he had faced some difficult moments when team members disagreed with his strategic decisions. I felt frustrated when James argued with me about which play to call, but I remembered what you said about good leaders listening to input from their team. I asked him to explain his idea, and it actually was a good suggestion that helped us score. His experience demonstrated sophisticated emotional intelligence in action, managing his own frustration, remaining open to others' perspectives, and making decisions that prioritized team success over his ego. Catherine and William praised not just the positive outcome, but the emotional processing that had made it possible. George, you showed real emotional intelligence today. You felt frustrated, which is normal when someone challenges your decision, but you didn't let that frustration control your response. Instead, you stayed curious about James's perspective and made a decision based on what would be best for the team. That's exactly what good leadership looks like. Charlotte shared her experience supporting Emma, and the family discussed the emotional challenges of helping friends through family difficulties. William and Catherine helped Charlotte understand the difference between being supportive and taking on responsibility for fixing others' problems, a crucial distinction for someone with Charlotte's naturally empathetic personality. You showed wonderful friendship skills today, Charlotte. You noticed Emma's emotional state, offered support, and listened without judgment. It's also important to remember that you can't solve Emma's family situation, and that's not your responsibility. Your job as a friend is to be caring and consistent, which you did beautifully. Lewis's Block Castle experience became a family discussion about conflict resolution and the positive effects of responding to accidental harm with emotional intelligence rather than immediate anger. William connected Lewis's experience to larger principles about building positive relationships and communities. Lewis, when you chose to assume good intentions and explain your feelings calmly, you not only solved the immediate problem, but you also taught your classmates something valuable about how to handle mistakes. Your emotional intelligence made the situation better for everyone involved. As autumn progressed into winter, the Wales family's emotional intelligence approach continued to evolve and deepen. The children were taking on increasing independence in managing their emotional lives while still benefiting from their parents' guidance and support. Their sibling relationships had become models of emotional intelligence in action, with each child supporting the others through challenges and celebrating each other's successes. The approach William and Catherine had developed was also beginning to influence their extended family and social circles. Teachers at Lambert School had noticed the Wales children's exceptional emotional intelligence and were incorporating similar approaches in their classroom management. Friends and family members were observing the positive effects of the emotional intelligence focus and asking for advice about implementing similar strategies with their own children. During the Christmas holidays, the family took time to reflect on their emotional intelligence journey over the past year. Each child had grown significantly in their ability to understand and manage their own emotions while also developing sophisticated skills for understanding and responding to others' emotional needs. George was preparing for the transition to secondary school with confidence in his emotional abilities rather than anxiety about social challenges. His leadership experiences had taught him that emotional intelligence was a crucial component of effective leadership, a lesson that would serve him well throughout his future royal responsibilities. Charlotte had developed remarkable empathy and social awareness that made her a sought-after friend and a natural bridge builder in social situations. Her ability to understand and respond to others' emotions while maintaining her own emotional well-being positioned her well for her future role as a senior royal family member. Louis had progressed from a typical emotionally reactive preschooler to a thoughtful, emotionally aware child who could navigate complex social situations with remarkable sophistication. His emotional intelligence foundation would serve him throughout his development and into his adult roles. William and Catherine reflected on their own growth as parents and emotional intelligence coaches. They had moved from uncertainty about how to raise emotionally intelligent children in a royal context to confidence in their approach and pride in their children's development. Their commitment to emotional intelligence had not only benefited their children, but had also strengthened their marriage and their own emotional well-being. The Wales family's emotional intelligence journey had become more than a parenting strategy. It had become a family culture that influenced every interaction and decision. As the children continued to grow and face new challenges, they carried with them not just knowledge about emotions, but practical skills for building positive relationships, managing difficult situations, and contributing positively to their communities. Their approach had demonstrated that emotional intelligence could be successfully developed even within the unique constraints and pressures of royal life, providing a model for other families while also preparing the children for their future responsibilities as emotionally intelligent leaders in an increasingly complex world.